following program is brought to you by your friends at Podcast One.
There is a place that is spoken about only in whispers. A dark area that spawns the beginnings of urban legends. A place where anything can happen and usually does. During the light of day, it hides just outside of view. But when the sun goes down, spirits, creatures of the night, roam free, and things do go bump in the night. It is in every state and every country, and there is no escaping it, no matter how safe you feel behind your locked doors and latched windows. So we invite you to turn down the lights and turn up your radio while we join Dave Schrader and Tim Dennis, your hosts, on a journey into the darkness on the edge of town.
Hello and welcome. You made it through another week. Congratulations. It's time now for the best in paranormal talk radio. This is Beyond the Darkness. I'm Dave Schrader, and over at the Supernatural News Desk, Mr. Tim Dennis. How are you, Tim?
Doing good.
Good. Hey, listen, I'm bringing another Tim on the show. I don't want you to get jealous. I don't want you to get weird about this.
No, I'm just afraid that this ends up like that Freaky Friday thing where we both get mixed up and you must understand that there's two Tims here and you mistake him for me, and then I don't know, somehow, I don't know.
Never going to happen. I would never mistake you, Cuddle Bear. You're good to go.
Two Lindsay Lohans here or something. Yeah.
Well, speaking of Lindsay Lohan, let's talk to our unhinged friend Tim Lammers now. He is a well-respected movie fan, and I hate to use the word critic, Tim. I hate using it because he's not a critic. He's a fan of movies, but he writes about movies, and he's one of the biggest movie reviewers. Let's go with movie reviewers. I like that. In the Twin Cities market and nationwide. Tim Lammers joining us right now on the beginning of the show. Tim, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dave, and thank you, Tim. And if it would help with the confusion, you can call me Timothy. It's my given name, so Timothy works fine. But I was wondering where you were going with that Lindsay Lohan reference. I interviewed her back in the day. Before the stuff came down with her career, and quite nice if I could remember. Actually, it was for the Freaky Friday remake of all films. But anyway, hey, thanks for having me on your show, guys.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here. I wanted to talk about a movie that kind of came out quietly. Didn't seem to make a big bang a few years ago, but it really seemed to pick up a lot of attention on Netflix and Redbox. And it was a movie that I don't even remember hearing about, and then caught it on a movie screening while I was on a plane one day, called Happy Death Day. And right. Man, what a great little film. It was a great film. They're treading on some popular genre. You've got some horror movie versions, and then kind of mixed with Groundhog's Day, and a heavy element of humor and dark humor at that. But I thought it was such a really well done, well acted, and such a fun movie overall. Why don't you think that picked up more traction when it first hit?
It's a good question, Dave. It is, to me, a brilliant film, brilliant concept. Again, it's something we've seen before. I mean, and obviously Edge of Tomorrow, we got it there with the Tom Cruise film, but that was another film that just didn't seem to pick up the steam that it needed to. In the case of Happy Death Day, it was a small budgeted film, so I'd imagine that the lack of marketing dollars had something to do with it, but it was also a product of Jason Blum and Blumhouse Productions. And that guy clearly has his finger on the pulse of movie making as a whole. I mean, he is really established his name, for producing, yes, low budget stuff, but really high quality stuff. But you have to remember, while it only made $55 million domestically, it was also made for $5 million. So that thing was a monster hit. And I think overall worldwide, it made over 100. Again, doesn't sound like a lot in the scheme of things when you're talking about the Avengers and Black Panther making $1 billion. But, from the amount it cost to make to the amount it made, it was huge. It was huge. And it gave them the opportunity to make Happy Death Day to you, with that's just a you. They're going with the the Prince speak there.
We'll talk about that in a second. I do have to mention that today's movie review segment is brought to us by our friends at the Psychic Source. Trying to solve your own life's mysteries? Let our sponsor, who has been seen on Good Morning America, help you solve your case. Psychic Source is a 24/7 phone, online chat, and video psychic service. They've been in business for 30 years and have over 300 of the most experienced, authentic psychics in the world. Try it for as low as 83 cents a minute, plus your first 3 minutes are free, and your satisfaction is 100% guaranteed or your money back. You have nothing to lose. Use promo code DARKNESS to get the special introductory offer. You must be 18 years or older with a valid credit card in your name to have a psychic reading at 1-800-355-9214. Again, 1-800-355-9214. Use promo code DARKNESS or sign up online at psychicsource.com. Also, use promo code DARKNESS at checkout. All right, Tim. So happy Death Day to you. I was actually excited to see that they were going to come back at it with another sequel. And you were talking about Jason Blum from Blumhouse Productions, and they've been behind, Paranormal Activity and Insidious and Sinister and the Conjuring movies. I was reading an interesting article a while back that this guy, they'll put together, 5-6 movies that all cost, between $3 to $6 million. And some of them may never see the light of day, but the one that hits pays for all those other movies to be created and still leaves a pretty huge chunk of profit at the end of that rainbow. So he's got to be extremely popular with the movie companies overall, because if they've got some of these big bloated movies that don't hit the budget they were expecting, they're not hitting the numbers they wanted. These little movies that are $5 million to make and gross $100 million have got to help keep them afloat.
Oh, without question. And it's funny that those movies that you talk about, I would love to see them, because clearly, I mean, he's like I said, he's got his finger on the pulse of something here. And Get Out. He was an Oscar nominated producer for that film. I mean, he's one of these guys that hits, if I could use the fancy word, he's hit the zeitgeist. For some reason, this guy is the hottest guy going right now. And, and he rises to the pressure too. When you talk about him being behind that Halloween remake and how successful that was. So, he not only has a great reputation for these lower budgeted movies, and he's got this, and I guess you could say Halloween, the remake, was a lower budgeted movie as well, but obviously a high profile title.
How dare you, Lammers?
Yeah.
It was not a remake. It was a sequel to the original John Carpenter classic.
Well, yeah, a reboot, of course. It's been a while since I've seen it. I only caught it in the theater, but yeah, you're right. The reboot, the sequel, to Halloween, again, he can handle the pressure too of delivering on that promise as well. So yeah, I really think that he, I don't know if you want to say stumbled into something great with Happy Death Day, because I think that there's a lot of thought went into that movie. It wasn't a cheap slasher movie. No. It was a great slasher movie made for very cheap. And I should say a slasher comedy, because there's a lot of comedy in it as well. And that's the avenue that he took with it that made it so different, is that, okay, we can have this sort of thing combined with a Groundhog's Day premise, and it can be funny as well. It was just something new and quite welcome to the genre as far as I'm concerned.
All right. There does seem to be a whole new vibe and feel for that. On Netflix, they've got a series now called The Russian Doll, right, with Natasha Lyonne. And
yeah, I heard about that. I haven't seen it yet. Have you?
I haven't. I've got it in my queue to watch. I'm hoping to get through it this weekend. But it seems like it's following that same vein where she is Natasha Lyonne wakes up and keeps dying in all these different ways throughout her day. And she keeps waking up at the same point and trying to figure her way out of this maze. So it's becoming a popular trope for movies again, but Happy Death Day really seemed to grab it. And now you've seen Happy Death Day 2, which is the sequel coming out now. Does it hold up as well as the first? Were they able to capture that same kind of magic, or did it just seem like a poor imitation of the first?
No, it isn't a poor imitation. Is it as good as the first one? I don't think so. Is it a good movie? Absolutely, it's a good movie. What it does is that it reexamines that day that we got in the first film. Tree, the lead character played by Jessica Roth, she figured her way out of, being murdered by this slasher in the first film. All seems to be well, but then one of the friends is a quantum physics major in college. He has this project that he has this machine that throws her back into the time loop, the same time loop that she was in the first day of the film. However, she enters through that time loop into a different dimension. So the circumstances behind that day are different. Some of the people that were quote unquote bad people maybe aren't so bad this time around. There are characters that we only heard of but did not meet in that first film that we all of a sudden meet in this film. So she has a situation where she has to make a choice because she likes this new time loop for some of the opportunities it presents her, but then it also means that she will have to sacrifice some of the things she got by experiencing the time loop in the first Happy Death Day. I hope that isn't too confusing, but when you get quantum physics involved and they start explaining that sort of stuff, that's the confusing part of the movie. The movie can get confusing at times with all that jargon, this, that, and the other thing. But is it funny again? Yes. I love the characters. And this is the other great thing. These are performers that we largely don't know about. It kind of goes to prove that if you have a good script, you don't always have to have the Tom Cruises in there for it to be, to attract audiences. And I think this movie is going to attract an audience because the first one did, again, like you said, it found its life on video streaming, all those other avenues. So I think that they're looking at a pretty good opening for this film.
Well, and even Tom Cruise doesn't guarantee. Look at that movie that he did, The Mummy. They were really hoping to launch a whole new, storyline with this Universal Studios monsters, and it seems to have put a bullet in the head of it instead and just dropped it to its knees, unless you know more about that. But yeah, even the big names are not drawing the attention that they once would for these kind of movies. And that's what I love about Blumhouse. And I wonder, Tim, because he does seem to have a good handle on picking the right people and these young unknown actors and actresses, I wonder in some of these more faltering movies that didn't really measure up to the big release, I'm wondering if he's waiting to see if any of these stars catch fire and then release the movie later down the line. And then even at a movie put out at $5 million, if it's got a new star in it that really seems to be on the rise and they can throw it in the theaters and it only brings in $35 million, they're recouping their money, making a little bit extra, and they can continue on in that same vein. So I wonder if his use of untapped talent in a lot of these lower budget films will end up paying out for him in the long run.
I think I think that's a great observation that you made there, Dave. There could be some movies starring these people. Well, I mean, what a great strategy that would be. And if that indeed is the case, how much is that going to revolutionize the way movies are made? I mean, so it'll be interesting to see. I mean, certainly, the people that were in the first one, they probably signed up for the second one as part of and I'll have to tell you too, this one sets it up for a trilogy. There probably is going to be a Happy Death Day 3, the way things pan out at the end of this film. So he probably signed these people up for cheap. Hopefully he'll be a good guy and bump up their salary or they'll have a percentage or do something to reward these people, because obviously that's part of the appeal of the film. So yeah, I would love to see that concept pan out. But I also have to tell you about what Jason Blum's done with the Dark Universe. I don't know if you knew about this, but it looks like Universal, because he is, in tight with Universal now. Actually, Happy Death Day to You is a Universal picture. He appears to at least taken over one of the properties with the Invisible Man. So he is developing that. And there is a director attached, and I don't remember the director's name, but at this moment, but yeah, I mean, so I think that they clearly saw some fresh new potential with him, rebooting this dark universe. And, hopefully we're going to see those monster movies that we were hoping to see after The Mummy.
Yeah, that'd be great if we can actually get that. Before I let you go, Tim, I'm curious on your thoughts on this. There's a news story coming out. 2 Alien TV shows are reportedly being developed. Ridley Scott is producing one of them for Hulu. So last year it was reported that there was a TV series in development that would be set in the Alien universe. And according to the article here on Geeky Rant, it says, we've got some new information to share with you regarding that today. Apparently, there's not one but 2 Alien shows in early stages of development. According to HN Entertainment, one of those shows will be produced by Ridley Scott for Hulu. Scott is currently directing his first television project with the sci-fi series Raised by Wolves for TNT. With him moving into TV, it seems like an Alien series may be something that he's wanted to jump on board, especially since the 3rd film in his Alien prequel series looks like it's not going to happen. Details are scarce at the moment, but there might be multiple seasons that could tackle different corners and eras of the franchise, not unlike Noah Hawley's series Fargo. In theory, I could see them possibly filling gaps in the franchise or crafting brand new stories to tell within the Alien universe. It still seems to be very early days with these projects, and I can't exactly speak to what they'll be about at the moment. Fox has teased big plans for the Alien franchise in 2019. They even used the slogan, read, play, watch. I imagine these Alien TV projects are part of the watch portion of their plan. This makes sense as the shows that we are seeing on TV these days are all high quality, great productions. If these Alien projects actually get the green light, they're looking forward to seeing what will be coming up. In the meantime, holding out hope again, I still would love to see Neil Blomkamp's version of Aliens. He wanted to come in and pick up at the end of Aliens 2, Aliens, and carry the story forward, having left Hicks and Newt alive in that universe. Do you think with the failure, and I don't know if I'm being fair in saying failure, but Prometheus and then, and I can't even remember the name of the second Alien. What
Covenant.
was it? Alien Covenant.
Alien Covenant.
I enjoyed it, but to me, it seemed like they took Aliens, 2001: A Space Odyssey, and The Age of Ultron and mixed them all together and created Alien Covenant. There was nothing new or fresh about the movie to me, and now that's really, seems to be the death knell for that series. Do you think that Ridley Scott being attached to the TV version is going to be a detriment to it, or do you think it'll help lift it into an iconic status?
I think people still have hope for Alien. Again, they just haven't told the story that people want to see. I think that, the 3rd film, if he would have made that, from what I understand, it would have brought it up to the point where we met Ripley in that first Alien movie. So they would have de-aged Sigourney Weaver for that film. No, I don't think a detriment at all. I mean, yes, look, as much umbrage as people took toward the Star Wars prequels, I still don't think, you have to, George Lucas's involvement, I think his name being attached still carried a lot of weight.
Right.
And I think that, he's being honored as the creator of that series. So no, I don't think that's a detriment at all. I really hope that, I think it's a smart way to go. I mean, you really hinge a lot on a 2-hour film just because you're trying to fit so much into that 2 hours that they give you. I think TV is a great way to go with this just because, you can, again, there's a lot more room to tell the story now. It's stretching it into a series. You can fill in a lot of gaps that way. I think it's a smart move, especially since films, it doesn't take that long to get the streaming services anyway these days.
Right.
We're talking a 90-day window generally. And maybe shortened even a little bit by the fact that streaming offers the films a couple weeks before they become available on Blu-ray. So I think moviegoers, along with their great sound systems at home and their, 100-inch screens, I think that the timing is right for something like this. I really can't wait to see it. I'm a huge fan of the franchise, despite the ups and downs.
Yeah, I enjoyed the original quadrilogy. I liked all of them. The 3rd one, of course, being the weakest to me, but I've enjoyed all of the versions. I wasn't keen on Prometheus. Again, they weren't really billing it as an Alien connection. And then Alien Covenant I thought was entertaining, but it just didn't live up to my expectations and what I was hoping to see come from it. The same is going through with the Predator franchise. They've tried to reboot it with Robert Rodriguez a few years ago. They just brought out a new version. Predators, I enjoy them. Again, I think they're fun, interesting. I don't know what people are really looking for, but they don't seem to be hitting at the box office like they would back in the 80s and 90s.
Well, that's just it. I mean, people like they just have a shelf life, right? I mean, look at Arnold Schwarzenegger. As hard as he's been trying to make a comeback, fortunately for a guy like Stallone, another 80s icon as far as an actor is concerned, he got lucky with Creed. Otherwise, he'd be stuck in that same situation that Schwarzenegger is stuck in now. Now, again, we're going to find out, with this reboot, I guess you could say, skipping chapters of the Terminator series coming up, with Cameron producing. Again, hopefully his name and involvement will be enough to propel that ahead of what the other Terminator films have failed to do after T2 Judgment Day. So I don't know, man. It's lack of originality in some regard. You just hope that they will come up with something new. But whatever these guys are doing with these films, whether it be Predator or Terminator, to this point, it just hasn't worked.
Let me ask you this, Tim. There's also another project out there involving Arnold, too, having to do with Conan the Barbarian. I know Marvel Comics is coming out with an actual cover for a Conan comic that has it's a drawing based on current day Arnold in an older format, and there's supposedly a script out there having to do with an older Conan and him passing the mantle down to a younger king. Does that stir up any interest with you as a reviewer? If that storyline were put out there, do you think that could restart up a franchise?
Possibly. I mean, part of me looks at it, and I didn't see the video, but I did see the frame of him holding the comic book. So this was just recently, right, Tim?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
It was probably within the last few days.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, personally, as a reviewer, no, I mean, part of me being, the cynical side will say, Arnold, if this didn't work for him and this didn't, now it looks like he's trying this. Having said that, being that the franchise without him has been dormant for so long, maybe that's a good thing. I mean, how many times did Stallone have to do? How many Rocky movies did he do before finally he hit again? With Creed. So, I guess I'm open to it ultimately, but part of me too would just as soon see these guys just do something new. Yeah. I have to admit, I wasn't as crazy about the Conan films as I was Terminator and Alien back in the day. So, but that's okay. I mean, if I go in without those expectations, maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised as this thing eventually gets made.
I think the Rocky is the only exception. I enjoyed every one of the movies. I think most people did. I know there's always a weak link in there, but most people have enjoyed it. And then the reimagining of the series, now looking at it through Creed and looking at it through a different set of eyes, I think was a great way to go. And it's fit the dynamic exactly as I think it should. I don't know that there are many other iterations out there. And truthfully, I think the one glaring problem that they've been missing in both the Alien and the Predator worlds is if you have actors that are willing to revisit, why not go out with one big flash and do an Alien versus Predators movie where you end up pitting aliens and predators and bring Ripley and Dutch back into action, Schwarzenegger and Sigourney Weaver together in the movie, and they're both just smack dab in the middle of the shit. And that's it, right? And it's like everything we as fanboys and geeks could want, and our two favorite heroes from these franchises finally coming together on screen to have to do the one big battle, the one big war. I think that'd be the best cap for this, and then just end it, and then reimagine the series in a new way, or take it to new storylines where we can go follow other people and other stories. But I think that's what everybody's been waiting for, is they want a friendly revisit. They want something that will feel new and fresh, but has recognizable characters and an end to both of those stories.
That's a great idea. I mean, I would love to see something like that. That is exactly the sort of movie I would love to see. It sounds like a battle royale of all those great characters and the humans and the monsters.
And they teased the fact that one of the original endings for the Predator movie that just came out, there's scenes from it where at the end, and if you have not seen it, earmuffs right now. But at the end of the movie, we're introduced to a battle armor that will be used to maybe help fight the Predators. In the original, they also sent a warrior, and the warrior opens up the pod, and there is somebody laying there with dark curly hair and this breathing mask on her face, which looks reminiscent to the Alien face hugger. And then you see the nameplate on her shirt says Ripley. So it's like they found Ripley to be the ass-kicking Predator warrior. You know, I kind of wish they would have gone with that, because I would have loved to have seen where that was going. But if you could picture a movie poster with Sigourney Weaver and Schwarzenegger back to back, and Weaver looking into the eyes of a predator and Schwarzenegger looking into the reflective surface of the alien head, I think that alone would bring in $200 million. Just the poster would bring in that. And I know it's going to cost $150 to make, but that would be a storyline I think people would get behind and love to see occur. And I'm also really getting fed up, and Tim, Dennis, I'll throw this to you. I mean, the concept of, okay, let's revisit this, but now we're going to throw out episodes 2, 3, and 4, and we're just going to go back, and this sequel is going to take place right after part 1, and now we have to forgive everything that happened, and then those reboots aren't working, so now we're going to come out with a new Friday the 13th that actually picks up where the original series left off, and that's what they're starting to do with some of these series. It seems just... I don't know. You're a fan of sci-fi and horror, Tim, Dennis.
Yeah.
Are those aspects of the movies finally pissing you off?
Yes and no. I'll tell you where it worked for me and why it doesn't work in other sequels. It was refreshing with me with Halloween. It did kind of cleanse the palate a little bit with Halloween. And I did enjoy this last Halloween. I finally sat down and watched it. And for me, it was kind of a little bit of a forgiving pass for me with the Rob Zombie stuff. So in that, it was kind of a, thank you type of deal. Right. Whereas in other franchises, I don't know, with the new Terminator movie, it may be a miss, you never know.
Well, it's great to see Linda Hamilton back.
Yeah, it is.
And reprising her role. And I would be interested to see where it goes. But I feel like, I've invested myself throughout good and bad sequels. Right. I just want a good storyline. Why can't we revisit? Why can't this be, Terminator 2.5 or something? Right, so it's actually sandwiched in between those movies and giving us a little bit of a feel. So we don't have to discard what happened in 3, 4, and 5. But we can, shoehorn it into the part of the story, a part of the narrative that was unexplored before. Well,
you're hitting on something here, and that is that filmmakers forget that there is an audience out there that, even though the majority of the film watching audience didn't enjoy a particular portion of that film genre, or those chapters that they put out there was an audience that did enjoy, like say Terminator Genesis, or enjoyed one of the chapters out there that most people didn't enjoy. So there were some people that did enjoy that chapter that you put out there, or did enjoy that sequel that you put out there. So there is a small part of that audience that has an affinity for that chapter that's out there. So you put something,
wipe it all away.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can't say that, okay, it didn't exist, or you can't throw it out there and say it didn't exist. It's out there. So, you can't put the genie back in the bottle.
I'll tell you what, guys, both of you, there's something really interesting that Amazon, Audible has done. They have a series of Alien books that are full cast audio dramas. And, I listened to the first one in the series, and it was great. And the concept, it actually takes place between Alien and Aliens. And some salvage crew finds Ripley's pod and ship and ends up bringing her on board as they're facing the menace of these aliens. And it explains how this fits in between both stories. And it does it really clever. It does it with a great story, a great narrative, and then then it puts her back into the universe the way we're expecting her to be and explains how and why she could go into Aliens 2, or maybe it was the bridge between Aliens 2 and Aliens 3. I can't remember, but it fits in between those timelines and it made sense. And it was an exciting new way to tell the story and give us some background on characters that we liked that maybe we felt unfulfilled by. So I think there are some really great aspects of looking at these different portions in between the series that we can always re-examine. These things are happening, concurrently, but why not tell some of the missing chapters of the story? Do you think that Lammers would be a better way to maybe tackle these stories instead of just the reimagining or reinventing of the series and trying to shoehorn in a new part 2?
Yeah, I mean, there's always room for, parts of the story that wasn't told to be told between those films. I don't understand why they don't do that. I mean, I think Star Wars did that well with the Clone Wars TV show. I mean, this took place between, episodes 2 and 3. That seems to make sense. And why not do that? Because you're right. There are going to be fans of those, even though they might not have been, as financially successful as the first 2 Terminators or whatever, that films, that people still like them. And all of a sudden you're asking a fan of the franchise to forget part of it. It's kind of like, spitting in their face in a way.
Right.
And here's the other thing that when Terminator comes out, the new one, it'll be interesting to see. I don't know which studio owns the rights to those other Terminator movies, but they're probably going to try to market and sell and repackage all of those movies.
Oh, sure.
So yeah, in terms of the timeline that we're seeing on screen, 3 and Genesis don't exist, but yet we want you to buy them.
Right.
So yeah, it's all about the money. And again, I think that they think that these brands are so well known that people are just going to go to theaters without a thought to see them. And I think they've been proven wrong again and again and again. So do I hope the new Terminator is successful? Yes, I do. I don't like seeing bad movies. I mean, I don't like wasting my time at movies. I want to be surprised. I want to see stuff if it's going to be reimagined or if it's going to be a sequel or whatever. I want to be entertained because that's what it's all about. That's what keeps these franchises alive. But if it's going to be the same thing, I don't know. You mentioned Linda Hamilton before. I mean, I'm wondering if her name alone will be a big enough draw, her and Schwarzenegger, because Schwarzenegger, clearly his name hasn't been the magic, trick to get people back into the theaters. I wonder how, Linda Hamilton's involvement will make a difference this time around. Do you have any thoughts about that?
I think, again, finding that original connection, that's part of what made it exciting. So I could see them getting much further with it this time, because I think there are a lot of us that grew up in the 80s that have an affinity for that, and maybe we'd like to just see a better ending than we got in Terminator 2 or any of the subsequent movies that followed after that. So I think it will, because there are enough purists and there are enough new fans that will see it and support it. Because it's a connection to what we know and is familiar. It's not new story. It's not something that we're dreading, a reboot or a remake. It's kind of returning us to familiar situations, which is why I think Tim was right when he said the Halloween movie hit. I really wish that they hadn't already released the fact that they're coming out with a sequel to the new series of sequels. I wish they would have done that as a nod and a thank you and then just put it to rest. Why not do something like Carpenter wanted and create a new character, a new Halloween? Why can't there be something new like that can carry on? They just seem like they're reluctant to give the mantle over. Friday the 13th teased that idea that in the original series, maybe Jason would be done and Tommy would become the new Jason Voorhees. He'd become the new Stalker. But people were so, I think Hollywood is so afraid of change that they can't do it. Now, there are 2 movie franchises, I think, that did something really interesting and fascinating. And that was the Saw series, where I enjoyed them for what they were, that gore porn, but it was still, I liked the way that each movie kind of tied into a different aspect in its history. And then the final movie kind of blows you away and makes you realize, oh, this is this is a precursor to the rest of this story. And you get surprised. And they always found an interesting way to do that. And then Final Destination was the other series. In the last, I think it was the last movie in that series. You watch it, you think it's a contemporary movie, and then realize, oh, this movie leads into the very first movie. And that was a cool way to handle it. And you never saw it coming. And it was this great kind of cyclical nature that you can do that and look at these different points and how they all line up and then play with the viewer's mind. That would be intriguing to see happen. And I hope they do try to explore more of those kind of concepts, but, treading new water. I guess we're all agreed we want more originality, and that's why maybe guys like Blumhouse are doing so well. And I hope he doesn't just start taking over the mantle for other failed series to try to fix them or write them, like J.J. Abrams has he's kind of the fixer now, right? He picked up the Star Trek franchise, tried to make something of it. Then they liked what he did so much. Let's bring him into Star Wars and see if he can fix. I feel like then they're stifling the creativity of Abrams, and he becomes a fixer as opposed to a creator. And I hope that doesn't happen in the sci-fi and horror genre. And I think there's enough titles out there and enough things to go that I don't know that we really need a new Chucky movie. Although I do think this premise looks more intriguing than any of the last 3 or 4 in the series, the new Child's Play movie. But to me, it's just like, man, can't we come up with any new really good creatures, any good creepy characters out there to re-examine and find a new way to deal with them?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I'm not excited about the new Child's Play. Although, again, just from the trailer, I like the concept. They're modernizing it, which is pretty cool. I mean, that's the only way to go with it. But the make or break, and Dave and Tim, I'm sure you both agree. I mean, what are they gonna do with the guy that does the voice for Chucky? I mean, Brad Dourif couldn't have been any more perfect for that character. And imagine the poor slob that's going to be doing the voice for Chucky this time, how much he is going to be roasted if he doesn't come close to what Brad did. That to me is going to be, and that would have, look, if they would have unveiled what the voice sounded like, it might have killed the movie before it even came out. I'm wondering if they're going to actually reveal that before we actually see the film on the big screen. That to me, that the success, that's what I thought was so great about that first one, because he was a badass character, but he was such a wise ass too, and he almost made it funny at times,
right?
And that's a tough thing to do. I mean, it has to do with the writing and stuff too, but I just think the Brad Dourif's voice, man, I don't know what they're going to do this time around.
Are you certain that he isn't the voice?
Well, he could be.
Maybe that's the big surprise for this. What would keep it from being Brad Dourif's voice?
Well, it could be, but the guy who's the creator, and he's done every single of one of those Child's Play films. This isn't his baby. This is somebody else now that redid it. And then I believe he is behind, yes, it's true, a Child's Play TV series. So, if you don't have the original guy involved with the remake, apart from getting the characters created by credit, does that mean Brad continues on or not? I don't know. But
that was Don Mancini, right? Don Mancini that kind of kicked off.
Don Mancini, I almost said that. Yep. And so for the word is now is that he's working on a TV series. Now you wonder, it makes sense for an Alien franchise to have a TV series because there's so much to explore, but the continuing adventures of Chucky every week, I don't know. I don't know how that would sit with me.
Yeah, well, they should ask MTV.
I think they work better as movies.
Yeah, I think they should ask MTV that tried the Scream series, and they knocked out 2 relatively decent seasons of that show, but I still don't think it translated. I don't know that you can follow a slash and dash movie character on a weekly episodic series, even if it's a short 12-episode series. I don't know. I think we're in a lot of danger of just retreading the same crap, and I hope that guys like Jason Blum will keep knocking out new ideas and new concepts, and maybe we can start to grow off of that. Even though he's pumping out sequel after sequel to his films, most of them still stand up, and they're pretty good sequels or tellings of the story, and I appreciate that about his work, and I hope they give more people the opportunity to do that. Tim, I know we were going to have you on for a few minutes. Thank you so much for hanging a little longer with us and kind of taking the show into a different genre. It's neat to talk about something a little different on a show once in a while, but thank you for your insights and sharing. So again, Happy Death Day to You is out, and what do you think? Is this out of what's your ratings on this one?
I gave it a 7 out of 10. I think it's a good movie. I don't think it's a great movie. The first one was such of a pleasant surprise. So obviously, we know what's coming with this one. So that right away is going to take it down a couple notches. Sure. And the originality. I mean, it's like, what can they do with this movie to make it different? And I think that there was a conscious effort there to do something different with it, and I applaud that, because it would have been very easy for them to just go down the exact same route as they did the first time. But they worked at a story that, again, gets confusing at times, but at least it's something different, and I applaud Jason Blum and whoever directed. Christopher Landon actually directed that, the son of Michael Landon.
Wow.
So, yeah. So, it's original enough for now. It works. I don't know about number 3. You'll know what I'm talking about when you see it. It's a mid-credit scene, so stick around after the first few credits, because that's what sets up the third film.
Is there anything at the end of the credits? Do we have to stay all the way through, or just that mid-scene roll was all you saw?
Well, I got the sense that was that, so I left.
Okay. All right. So we
we all have the terrible habit right now of staying to the very, very end, and 9 times out of 10 we're disappointed. So I thought, okay, this sets it up. It was pretty clear to me that was that. I'll be surprised if they had something after that, and if that's the case, we'll talk about that at a different time.
How can people keep up with you and your reviews? What's the best way for people to check in on you?
You can go to my website, directconversations.com. That's kind of the one-stop shop. It has links to all the radio shows that I do, KQRS, WCCO-AM, a couple in St. Cloud, Minnesota. All this is Minnesota-based. And also the interviews that I do are all on directconversations.com. And I also have the links to the podcast episodes that I put out. But you can go to timtalkshollywood.com to get to my podcast, which also features interviews and review stuff and movie news stuff.
And Tim does talk to all the celebrities from these movies, so it's not just a fan chatting. He's actually a fan chatting with the celebrities and the stars and giving you some other insights and looks on this. So timtalkshollywood.com, and what was the conversations?
Directconversations.com. And then, of course, and on Twitter, you can get me at Tim Lammers Films. So I'm always happy to talk with folks if they agree or disagree. I'm always happy to have a conversation about what they see. Again, I'm a movie fan first and a critic second. I love films, and that's why I do what I do.
All right. Thank you so much, Tim Lammers. We'll put up links to your sites and how people can find you. Always a pleasure to catch up with you, sir. We'll have to do it again soon.
All right. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Tim. Now you're the only Tim again, Tim.
Aw.
There shall be only one.
There should be only one.
Have a great weekend, guys.
All right. Take care. Tim Lammers. Great little visit with him. Our friends at Psychic Source actually have psychic advisors who work with police to help solve crimes. These people don't mess around. As a matter of fact, that's why they've been respected psychic service since the 80s when Ronald Reagan and Mommy were in office. And talking to psychics and astrologers, this company has been around since that point. Psychic Source's experienced psychic advisors are available 24/7 for private, confidential readings via phone, online chat, or face-to-face video readings. 100% satisfaction guaranteed, or your money back. Take a chance. Who knows? It could change your life. Not sure where to start? Well, they have 24/7 customer care agents to match you personally with one of their gifted psychics. So, ready to give them a shot? Your first 3 minutes are free, plus it's only 83 cents a minute for a reading up to 30 minutes. Just mention promo code DARKNESS when you call 1-800-355-9214. 1-800-355-9214, or sign up online at psychicsource.com. That's psychicsource.com, and use promo code at checkout on the phone or on the website for the best value. All right, we'll be back. We've got supernatural news coming up right after this.
Beyond the Darkness listeners, if you like this show, then you need to check out CarCast, because it's the longest running automotive podcast. And if you're anything like Dave and I, and you know a little bit about cars and you need to know more about cars, then CarCast is definitely the podcast you need to check out. CarCast is a twice-weekly automotive show hosted by Adam Carolla, wrestling superstar Bill Goldberg, and Matt the Moderator D'Andrea. It's the only show of its kind that explores all aspects of the automotive space, from the performance aftermarket to new car buying and the future of the automotive industry. The guys answer your questions, they offer advice, and feature guests from the automotive industry and celebrity car enthusiasts. Listen to CarCast with Goldberg and moderator Matt D'Andrea every Wednesday, and Adam Carolla with moderator every Friday on the Podcast One app or iTunes Podcasts.
Beyond the darkness.
Welcome back to the program. This is the best in paranormal talk radio. I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation as much as Tim and I did. Hey, if you want to be a part of the program, make sure to call our Voices from Beyond voicemail. Leave your paranormal story right there at 651-300-4977. Don't be afraid. Pick up the phone and call us. Tell us your story. 651-300-4977, just like this caller.
Hey guys, I called before about that dream visit that I had with my grandfather or dark entity. Well, I wanted to share a little bit of a lighter encounter that happened a few years before in a different apartment. It was still freaky, but not so dark. It was my first encounter with white and black positive, negative energy. Anyways, I had just moved into a new apartment. My boyfriend at the time and I were getting an apartment together, and it was 2 weeks before he would be moving in because of our previous lease agreements. So, anyways, we had moved everything in, and I had the day off, and I woke up that morning and I was unpacking when I got all of a sudden this urge to go lay down. And usually in the past, very rarely I would get this feeling, go lay down. And you lay down and you would see things like deja vu. You know, you're going to see a couple flash images and then it'll happen, whatever. But on this day, the need was very strong, and I was like, I have stuff to do. I've got to, get the stuff unpacked, get stuff put up. But it was so strong that I had to go lay down. So I went into the bedroom, and I sat down on the bed and laid back, and then it was like, boom. I was in this dream state is what I call it, which I'm very happy to hear that term has been used for the last year or two, because I never knew what else to call it. So I had went into this dream state, and in it, the room and everything was exactly as it was while I was awake. Broad daylight, the sun coming in, the room was light. The difference was that on the bedroom door, when the door was closed, there was a full-length mirror. And the mirror wasn't there, really, like in reality. But the mirror was there, and I was drawn to get up and look in it. And I stood in front of the mirror, and I was looking in it, and I felt compelled to look in it. And I couldn't figure out, and I'm looking, and I'm like, why am I looking in the mirror? I'm supposed to be seeing something, I guess. What is it? The door would start to open on its own, so I used my toe and nudged it closed. And I'm looking in the mirror, and the door would open, and I would nudge it closed. Door would open, I'd close it. Door would start to open, I would close it. I'm like, you keep opening, I can't look at myself and figure out what the heck it is that I'm supposed to be seeing. So I kept closing it. At one point, the door opened, and I heard my name. Very low and long and drawn out. Amanda. And I closed the door. I was a little bit worried at that point, like what the heck is really going on. Closed the door. It opened again. And I felt the uncontrollable urge to go lay down. I had to go to sleep because I'm about to see something. Kind of like when I'm awake and I know I'm going to get a vision, and you're compelled to go lay down. Well, I had already did that and went and laid down, but now I'm feeling it again in the dream state. I have to go lay down because there's something that needs to be shown to me. And I couldn't help it. I was drawn to the bed, so I trotted over to the bed, sat down, laid back, and I heard my name again. And then the door opened, and I was not there to stop it this time because I was laying on the bed. The door opened, and this entity walked in. It was all white, maybe 3 feet tall. It was short. It was a white humanoid. It was completely white. It had arms, legs. It looked like a person, but it was all white. And it came into the room. It came into the room and went directly to the side of my bed to me, quickly, like do. It was there. And the whole time that it was coming in, I heard, look what I've got. But just as quickly as it came in, do, I heard, look what I've got, 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 look what I've got. And it stood there with its arms out, with its hands cupped in front, its palms cupped together. And I looked in its face, and it had no distinct features, but where its eyes should have been, it was like a sideways figure eight of swirling black static. Just figure eight, static, black static moving. And in its hand, where I looked, was a ball. It was just a ball of black static. And, well, I was startled, and I woke up. And that was it. So then, 2 weeks later, my boyfriend moves in, him and his son, who was a toddler at the time. And there were many occasions when we would be sleeping, and, well, I would feel tugging of the toes. And I would think that it was his son, who was 2 years old at the time. And, you're half asleep. You're like, go to bed, go to bed, go to bed. And he, during the day we'd talk about it, and he would say, yeah, or he came into the room, I told him to go back to bed too. So he was feeling the same thing. But one night, it was fairly cold. It was pretty cool, about winter time or whatever, and I felt the tugging of the toes and the pulling of the blankets at the end of the bed, and I said, get up here. come on, because it was cold. I didn't want him, sleeping, out too long and not under covers. So I thought that it was his son. It felt exactly as if a 2-year-old had crawled up in the bed. But then when he came up to the top, I couldn't feel him. So I'm like, well, maybe he crawled on the other side of my boyfriend. Didn't think anything of it, went to bed. And it turns out that happened quite often. And there were a couple times when both my boyfriend and myself would wake up because of it. And we would say, well, is he over there with you? No. Is he over there with you? No. There was nobody there. So that's all for now. And I will talk to you guys soon. Love what you're doing. Keep it up. Love you guys. Bye.
Very cool. Remember, you can always call us beyond the voicemail at 651-300-4977. That's 651-300-4977. Our voices from beyond voicemail. Leave your story, and we'll use it on an upcoming episode. Today, we're going to just weave in a couple of these calls while we're doing our supernatural news, since we took a big chunk of the talk talking about horror movies and sci-fi and the nature of movies with Tim Lammers. Let's begin with some supernatural news. And Tim, I feel... well, because we were just talking about the Terminator and your fear of AI and the fact that Skynet is right around the corner, and you and I have this battle going on whether what's going to get us first, the AI or zombie apocalypse, I'm going to yield to you with a new story. Killer robots pose threat to humanity and should be banned, say scientists. Campaigners are demanding Britain signs up to be an international treaty outlawing them in a similar way to landmines. That's right. Killer robots pose a threat to humanity. The world's biggest gathering of scientists has been told. Campaigners want Britain to sign a treaty banning them in the same way as landmines. The call just came days after Home Secretary Gavin Williams unveiled plans for unmanned swarm drones to enhance our lethality. The UK is among 12 countries opposing a treaty, while 28 nations want one. The government insists humans will always be in charge of robot weapons, but campaigners fear new super drones could use human intervention merely to confirm a suggested strike. Mary Wareham of Human Rights Watch said, the security of the world and future of humanity hinges on achieving a ban on killer robots. Autonomous weapons in development include the Samsung Sentry gun, which reportedly guards the South Korean border. Reports suggest it identifies targets with voice and visual recognition and decides whether or not to shoot. And China also investing in weapons and limited human control, prompting arms race fears. On Monday, Mr. Williamson said Britain's £7 million squadron of drones capable of confusing and overwhelming enemy air defenses would be ready by the end of this year. Campaigners fear that this will increase civilian deaths due to the emotional distance between bomber and victim. Scientists and human rights experts gathered at the Association for the Advancement of Science in Washington, D.C. to discuss the technology. Mary Wareham, fully autonomous weapons are one of the worst examples of what can go wrong with artificial intelligence. Once they're out there, you cannot control them. They will, God, the word does not want to come out, proliferate. So there you go, Tim. I guess you have greater minds than mine agreeing with you. You've got scientists and a consortium coming up trying to say we should not create killer robots.
See? Even so, Dave, as you were reading that story, I had my iPad on mute. Siri had to speak up and just chirp and just be like, yeah, we're going to crush you.
Doom. Oh, God.
See?
It's coming for us. All right.
Yep.
So maybe there is something to this AI, but I still think there's hope for zombie apocalypse.
As you've included in the news stories here, evidently. So I guess I have to read this one.
Yes, you do. I think it's only fair. I gave in to you that killer robots may be a real problem,
as they state weekly in most news stories. But as that delicious box of Twinkies makes its way closer and closer to me via our bet. However, there's one little news story here. I'll read it. It says, deadly zombie deer disease sweeping the U.S., it makes animals waste away and become super aggressive with fears it could spread to humans. Sure. Also known as chronic wasting disease. It's been around for decades and decades.
No, it's zombie deer disease. Stop trying to change the. I didn't alter the news story I gave you.
No, I'm just saying it's been around for quite a while.
Whatever.
It attacks the brain, spinal cord, and other tissues in deer, elk, and moose. A deadly infection that turns deer into zombie beasts. I'm putting some emphasis on it for you, Dave. Is spreading across North America, according to a new report, and it's feared the so-called zombie deer disease could be transmitted to humans. Don't hold your breath. An infected deer, the horror disease attacks the brain, spinal cord, and other tissue. Oh, I'm just reading the byline of the picture. It's just a cute little deer. Look at it. Oh, it's so cute. He's just kind of laying there. Doesn't look too monstrous, Dave. I'm trying to
whatever.
I'm trying to be.
That's the worst part about it. Remember, the biggest trick Satan plays on us is to make us believe Satan doesn't exist.
Oh, okay. Also known as chronic wasting disease, it attacks the brain, spinal cord, and other tissues in the deer, elk, and moose. Animals affected become aggressive and rapidly lose weight and coordination before the illness kills them. So you can tell they just rip you right apart.
You think Bullwinkle was suffering from chronic wasting disease?
I think he was, yeah. Concern is now growing amid reports that the horror, Dave, I said horror, not horror, horror disease has spread to 24 U.S. states and 2 Canadian provinces. So my regrets to those kids on the Canadian-Texas border. The U.S. Centers for Disease and Prevention highlighted the issue in its 2019 report after it discovered the virus had spread to 2 more states since last year. That's 2 more kids. It's out of control. But while there are fears that zombie deer disease could become a new mad cow epidemic, there is no evidence as yet to suggest humans could be harmed. Yes, you heard me right. There is no evidence as of yet to suggest that humans could be harmed. However, a recent study found for the first time that macaques could get the virus after eating infected meat, sparking fears that a variant hitting humans could soon emerge. We're stretching now.
But the one thing you have to concern is a macaque would probably eat the raw meat, right? Whereas we would cook it, so it would hopefully kill any germ or bacteria.
Sure. A separate study found that lab mice with some human genes could become infected. The CDC report warns that the disease is spreading. It says in several locations where the disease is established, infection rates may exceed 10%, 1 in 10, and localized infection rates of more than 25% or 1 in 4 have been reported. The infection rates among some captive deer can be much higher, with a rate of 70%, nearly 4 in 5 reported from at least one captive herd. The disease was first spotted in the wild 40 years ago, Dave. 40 years ago! But has since been seen in captive deer since the 60s. The 60s, Dave. Just think, the Beatles were still up and going at that time. Since 2000, the area known to be affected by chronic wasting disease and free-ranging animals has increased to
zombie deer disease? Go on.
Chronic wasting disease, Dave. And free-ranging animals has increased to at least 24 states, including states in the Midwest, Southwest, and limited areas on the East Coast. The CDC then yelled and said, we're all going to die, and ran around in circles. It is possible that chronic wasting disease may also occur in other states without strong animal surveillance systems, but that cases haven't been detected yet. Once chronic wasting disease is established in an area, the risk can remain for a long time in the environment, I guess since the 60s. The affected areas are likely to continue to expand. The infection can be found in both free-ranging and farmed animals, but it can be years before an animal shows symptoms. It couldn't be years, Dave, just years. But there you go.
Well, that's how it starts. There's
that story that...
you know what we need to tackle that is killer robots that could just go out and annihilate all of the zombie deer.
Of humanity? Of humanity,
No,
Dave?
Tim, just the zombie deer.
Then they lose control and get rid of all humanity, Dave? That doesn't sound very good.
A dark place.
I mean, it doesn't. I mean, sure, it doesn't matter that all the world's governments are getting together and wanting to ban killer robots, Dave. But one may be more of a threat.
I don't
to
see
humanity
all of the
than
world's
other.
governments getting together and trying to ban people from allowing zombie deers to come together, Tim. I don't know if that made sense. But anyway,
it didn't.
Hey, I've got some good news for you, Tim.
Sure.
Valentine's Day just passed. I know that can be a down time for a lot of people.
Sure.
And I know your unrequited love for Lisa Left Eye Lopez after her death. I know that always left a hollow hole in your heart, but I have some good news for you.
What's that?
Well, imagine a world, Tim, where till death do us part wasn't taken so, literally, where you could be married after death and even get married after you'd already passed on.
Really?
Yeah, in actuality, there's no need to imagine it, Tim. Necromagy or necrogramy, I don't know how to say it, or marriage that takes place after death, it's alive and well today. That's ironic.
Oh.
Though the form and frequency of the practice varies across the globe, the fact remains that in some places, the right to marry never ends, even beyond the grave. Ghost marriage in modern times, well, it's happened, Tim. The most prominent still surviving legal acknowledgement of necrogamy is a French law which dates back to December 31st, 1959. The law came following the collapse of the Malapasset Dam, or Malapasset Dam, Tim, I'm not sure which one of those. It left one woman's fiance dead. Irene Jodard, the grieving bride-to-be, pleaded with the government to let her marry him anyway. So it's unclear whether Jodard's social capital or the plentiful media coverage of her case swayed the French government, but within a month, Article 171 of the Civil Code was written, and it states that the President of the Republic may, for serious reasons, authorize the solemnization of marriage if one of the spouses died after completion of official formalities, marking it unequivocal consent. In this case, the effects of marriage dated back to the day preceding the death of the husband. However, this marriage does not entail any right of intestate succession, but the benefit for the benefit of the surviving spouse, and no matrimonial property is deemed to have existed between the spouses. In practice, this means that while a living person may marry someone who's dead, they can't receive any of the deceased's money or belongings. You don't care. You don't want Lisa Left Eye Lopez's money and debt. Tim, you just want to be married to Lisa Left Eye Lopez, if I remember correctly.
Oh, yeah. And as long as she doesn't come back from the dead and start burning up my bathtub, my mansion, we're good.
Man. They can, however, receive a pension in insurance claims. And any unborn children or in utero at the time of the marriage are considered the deceased's legitimate child. Otherwise, it is a purely symbolic ceremony, as the living spouse is considered a widow or widower at the end of the ceremony. Some 20 posthumous marriages are conducted in France every year, and there are examples of similar practices here in the United States, South Korea, Germany, South Africa, Sudan, and Thailand. In China, however, where ghost marriages were once permitted, the idea of marrying the dead takes on an entirely new angle, Tim. So see, love doesn't have to end with death. Your hopes of marrying that perfect woman, even though she's dead, don't have to go up in smoke. There's been recorded instances of ghost marriage in China that date back to the Han Dynasty back in 200 AD. The most common arrangement was to marry two dead people, represented by effigies, moving the woman from her original gravesite to be near her husband. This would accomplish the joint task of giving an unmarried woman a place for her memorial tablet, since it cannot be put with her birth family's tablets, as she is expected to wed and join her husband's family and their tablets. Then giving the unmarried man's family a chance to adopt children in his name, so he will have descendants to worship him as an ancestor. So ghost marriages were also arranged to satisfy requests from those in the afterlife. Through dreams or seances, a dead man could communicate his unhappy bachelor status to his family, who would then set out to find him a wife. If his requests were ignored, legend had it that an incurable illness would strike the family. Chinese customs, which dictated that the eldest son be married before younger sons can find their own brides, also encouraged the practice of ghost marriage. If an older son were to die before marrying, a ghost marriage could be sought out in order to stop a succession of bachelor sons. One problem with these unions is that they've led to a rash of grave robberies. Even in recent years, people paid immense amounts of money for a fresh female corpse, so bodies were dug up and transported to paying customers. That's in recent times, Tim, so that dead men could have an honorable legacy.
Jeez.
Yeah. Sometimes a living Chinese woman would marry a dead man, mimicking the 20th century practice in France. If a woman's fiancé were to die before their marriage date, she could choose whether or not to follow through with the wedding. If she decides on going through with the ghost marriage, the groom would be represented by a white rooster, which would accompany her on the bridal carriage and on formal visits to her relatives after the marriage. The bride would then carry the preferable status of a married woman. If she didn't, she would take the risk of trying to find another man to marry her or to become a shameful single woman. If a man or a boy were to die without a fiancé, his family could still arrange a marriage for him in order to provide with more descendants to honor his spirit in the family. And if they were rich enough, they could convince a living woman to marry their deceased son. This way, she would be ensured financial security. The man's family would gain a daughter to help around the house, and children could be adopted, again, to carry on those lines. In these cases, the wives of dead men would live with many constraints, but they would also gain something beyond the preferred marital status. They would get freedom. As Elizabeth Gilbert writes in Committed, her memoir researching into the history of marriage, some Chinese women came to see this custom as an ideal social arrangement. During the 19th century, a surprising number of women in the Shanghai region worked as merchants in the silk trade. Some of them became terrifically successful businesswomen. Trying to gain even more economic independence, such women would petition for ghost marriages to further their social acceptability. And what a remarkable and weird world we live in.
Very much so.
Yeah,
very much
very
so.
strange.
I don't know. Is it?
You're not ready to make that commitment to Lisa Left Eye Lopez? I mean, I am ordained through the Universal Church of Light, Tim, so I can do that for you. And all we have to do is get like a little, I don't know, like maybe like a black chicken. And draw a little black mark under her eye, and it'll be like you're really marrying Lisa Left Eye Lopez.
I know that the sex dies down after marriage, Dave, but for it to die down immediately.
Does it?
Yeah.
I can find you a pretty good-looking chicken, Tim.
I'm used to coming in a bucket and fried.
Wow! Way to brag about your skills and ability.
I'm just saying, you're saying something about chicken. All I'm thinking about now is the kernel.
You told me that you're used to coming in a bucket. That's a whole different
I think we're talking about two different things here. It's I'm thinking about lunch and you're thinking about something else.
Yeah.
Oh,
everybody's got their stories, Tim, and every car comes with its share of stories. The ding in your bumper when you nervously picked up a first date, the luxury package you got after a big promotion, or the mileage you saved by riding your bike all summer. Well, you can't put a price tag on your stories now with TrueCar. You can at least find out what your car's worth when it comes time to sell or trade it in. Just go to TrueCar. Simply enter your license plate number and watch your car details pop up. Then answer a few questions. Navigation and moonroof? Watch as they bump up your value. High mileage? You already knew that was going to cost you. Does your car smell of chicken? Now you know how much that dings your wallet, so you can plan ahead. Once you're finished, you'll get a true cash offer sent in minutes, which you can take to a local certified dealer to cash out or trade in. So when you're ready to experience a better way to sell or trade in your car, check out TrueCar today. True cash offer may not be available in all areas. Hey, we want to hear from you guys. Give us a call on our Voices from Beyond voicemail, 651-300-4977. Tell us about your supernatural encounter. Was it scary? Was it funny? Was it weird, bizarre, ghosts, Ouija board, psychic phenomena, Bigfoot? What happened to you? Give us a call and tell us your story, 651-300-4977, and it may be featured on an upcoming episode just like this caller.
Hi, Tim and Dave. It's Tasha calling again. I'm calling from New Brunswick, Canada, and I am a funeral director. I called before with some funeral home stories and recently experienced something strange, so I thought I'd give you a call. My coworker and we got called out to a hospice in the city. It's a very old kind of Victorian building that was a home that's been turned into a place for people to pass away peacefully. The gentleman we were going to pick up was at the end of a hallway, and there were two other rooms near him, but both rooms, the doors were open, so I saw that there was no one in there. As we approached his room, the door was closed, of course, and we could hear people talking, a man and a woman. I couldn't quite make out what they were saying, but I could hear them talking in the room. So I said to my coworker, let's just wait and give the family some time. There must be some more people in there, and we'll just all knock in a couple of minutes. And she heard them too, so she agreed. She said, yeah, we'll just wait. So we're listening and kind of waiting, and the talking never stopped. So I said, I'm just going to knock and poke my head in. So I knock on the door, poke my head in, and there's no one in the room. It's just the deceased. So, that said, we were a little bit shaken, a little bit confused. We went in the room. The nurse came in, and I had mentioned to her that I could hear a man and a woman talking in their room. And she turned white as a sheet and said, there's no way, like, there's nobody down here. Mr. So-and-so's been by himself. His family's all out in the front waiting for you. There's no way you heard anybody. I said, no, I know. We heard two people talking. A few days later, I was talking to one of my coworkers who actually knew the deceased, and she mentioned to me that he and his wife, who had passed away years ago, always told one another that whoever crossed over first would meet up with the other one and make sure they make a safe passage to the other side. I don't know if he was talking to his wife. I don't know if it was spirits from maybe another family. I can't explain it. It's very strange. So I thought that I would share it with you guys. I'm always running into strange paranormal situations working in the funeral home. So as they happen, I will update you. I hope that you have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for being my entertainment. I can't thank you enough. We love listening to you guys here, and just keep up the great work. Thanks for making my life a little extra spooky. Bye.
All right, Tim, where are we off to next in the world of supernatural news?
We're off to Russia, Dave. Where it turns out that a Russian witch coven has formed a circle of power to curse Putin's enemies. Well, thank goodness we're not one of them.
Right.
Who knows? You're still thinking about buckets, I know.
Yeah.
A Russian group of women conducted a circle of power that is dedicated to using magic to support Vladimir Putin and casted spells and curses against Russia's enemies. Thank God President Trump is in good with him. The coven, a group of gathering of witches, convened in support of Russian President Vladimir Putin with the goal of using magical spells and curses to improve the nation. To enact the ceremony, the lead witch, Alyona Polin, rings a bell. No, she doesn't. Oh, well, she literally rings a bell and recites spells and curses while the surrounding witches stand in a circle holding spell books. She said, we have gathered her to make the world better through Russia. Not very good English for Russian, that's for sure.
Great translation.
No, that's what it says, literally.
No, I know that. Yeah. I'm just saying, it's great translation they did there.
We respect our president, she went on to say. A person of power can't not, that's a double negative, respect the existing authority. It is very important for us that all the decisions in this country are carried out in a correct manner. We understand that the power must aid the authorities and aid the nation and subsequently the earth. O primordial power, return to the abyss those who wish hate upon Russia, she went on to say. May Russia rise and step away from grief and poverty, and may the coming days open the gates of happiness for Russia. All hail. That's a nice little spell, isn't it? The surrounding women all then repeated hail in support of the Russian president. The woman leading the group of witches also spoke to reporters and said, I must say this is not a rally. This is a circle of power. I associate a rally as people walking with signs and chanting, some with little result. This is a concrete action, a magical act aimed at improving quality of Russia on planet Earth and, of course, to help the president. The leader witch also told the Russian media that the ceremony, which lasted roughly 20 minutes, was held in support of the state and the president as he is the face of Russia. One incantation from the meeting read, He who hears and does not hear, he who sees and does not see, who was and will be, will not forget my word. Well, it sounds like a riddle. Rise the great power of Russia, direct the path of Vladimir Putin truly and righteously through my word. A curse directed at Putin's enemies was read aloud as well. It said, Who comes to us with evil, who leaves with us with evil, who hurts us or speaks evil, forever eternally and endlessly damned enemies, enemies damned. Sounds like a really bad Dr. Seuss book, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, the head of the group also clarified that the overall goal was aimed at improving the quality of life on Earth through Russia, not to just support the president through their witchcraft. So there you go.
Very cool. All right. Well, Tim, it seems that NASA is going to be devoting their time to finding alien life. Calling all aliens, NASA wants you. A new NASA research team will be devoted to finding life beyond Earth. They launched this week in Silicon Valley and will seek to find concrete answers of how life began on Earth and where it could exist elsewhere. The Center for Life Detection Science will be part of NASA's Ames Research Center in Mountain View, California, and will bring together a new consortium of researchers from in and out of NASA with expertise in physical science, biology, astrophysics, and beyond, the release states. The search for life beyond Earth cannot be a one-size-fits-all approach. It gives ourselves the best shot at success. We need to develop tools and strategies that are tailored to detecting life in the unique conditions of other worlds, which are very different not only from Earth, but also from each other, said Tori Holler, the principal investigator of CLDS and a researcher at Ames. We now have the scientific and engineering expertise to address this profound question. Are we alone? With the clarity of scientific evidence, and we have a great community of scientists ready for that grand challenge. The CLDS will be joining teams from Georgetown University and Georgia Institute of Technology. Investigators from Georgetown's Laboratory for Agnostic Biosignatures will examine fingerprints for life, and will attempt to recognize life as we don't know it from faraway lands where life could look much different than from Earth's. Georgia Tech's Oceans Across Space and Time team will investigate the likelihood of past or present life in the solar system's icy outer moons or on ancient Mars. In the coming year, dozens of teams will join the project, which is modeled after NASA's 2015 Nexus for Exoplanet System Science, which was developed to study the habitability of faraway planets. Ideally, the research groups would be working hand in hand on future space conquests, which reminds me, tomorrow we've got a very interesting guest that's going to be joining us on the show. We're going to be talking about identified flying objects, a multidisciplinary academic approach to the UFO phenomena. Could these craft and the beings within simply be us from the future? We get to hear from real science tomorrow about this, Tim. Dr. Michael Masters, a professor in biological anthropology at Montana Tech in Butte, Montana, is going to talk to us regarding this story. And he's got some really interesting aspects to share with us. So I hope everybody will tune in tomorrow. Plus, a brand new Theater of the Mind. Again, Dr. Michael Masters, our guest tomorrow here on Beyond the Darkness. All right, where are we going next, Tim?
We're headed to Miami, Dave, where turtles that were chained together with voodoo dolls are being nursed back to health. That sounds like a Bob Dylan lyric. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it does.
Turtles chained to voodoo dolls. 2 freshwater turtles were nursed back to health when they were found chained together with voodoo dolls in Miami Beach, the Pelican Harbor Seabird Station. That sounds like a bad band name as well. Released one of the turtles back into the wild on Thursday. According to the Wildlife Service, beachgoers found the reptiles swimming in distress back in November. They had holes drilled in the edge of their shells and were connected with a lock and chain. That's hardcore. The chain was linked to a bag containing 2 voodoo dolls, cinnamon cloves, and 2 photos with an unknown couple. Both turtles had shell rot and respiratory infections. We have seen interesting cases before, but I've never seen one like this, said Wildlife Rehabilitation Manager Yuritsa Acosta. After 71 days of care, one of the turtles was released at a park in Miami on Thursday. The other turtle is still undergoing treatment. The Wildlife Service said they've received an osprey, a vulture, and 2 hawks with gunshot injuries in recent weeks. It's always difficult when we receive patients that are admitted as a result of animal cruelty. South Florida's native birds and wildlife are to be revered and respected, not shot or chained together, Executive Director Chris Boykin said in a statement.
All right. Voodoo Turtles.
That's a great band name, by the way.
Voodoo Turtles.
Voodoo Turtles. Yeah.
All right. Kevin Strutter, a sophomore modern foreign languages major, said he had an exhilarating paranormal experience while on a ghost hunters investigation at the Exchange Hotel Civil War Medical Museum in Gordonsville, Virginia. Strutter and senior chemistry major Liz Todd were in a room in which a man who didn't like women in his presence had died. Strutter asked the spirit if he'd be more willing to talk if Todd weren't in the room. Get out, it said. Strutter is vice president of the Ghost Hunters Club. This was one of Strutter's more frightening experiences while he's been in the club, which he said was chilling yet exciting due to finally having evidence of interacting with spirits. The club officially started back in 2014 when JMU alumnus Thomas Harbour and a few of his friends got together to investigate alleged paranormal hotspots in Virginia, such as Virginia Beach, Gordonsville, and Harrisonburg. Since then, the club has grown to 10 members. The club goes on 3 investigations per semester. During these excursions, the club sits in a circle and begins with an electronic voice phenomena session. They record sounds and questions they ask on their phones in hopes of receiving a response from the spirits. Sometimes they get to or try to get spirits to interact with them by using different instruments, such as a screw light or a ball. A screw light, you say, Tim?
Well,
we will ask questions any spirits that are out there, like, what's your name? What did you do? And why are you still here? Todd said. Todd is the president of the Ghost Hunters Club, yet he's a skeptic, meaning she doesn't believe in ghosts. However, Strutter is a believer, causing an interesting scenario in the club's leadership. I'm the president for debunking purposes, Todd said. My vice president believes in ghosts and I don't, so we will have that dynamic going back and forth. We will listen to audio from an investigation and be like, oh, that's a ghost. And I'm like, no, that's the wind. It can get kind of intense between us. Even though Todd doesn't believe in ghosts, she enjoys going on these adventures because of the historical significance of these destinations. Todd attempts to come up with logical explanations to keep the others calm when spooky things happen. Most people like to have me as president because I'm a calming presence, since I don't believe in ghosts, Todd said. It makes sense in a way, because if you have someone who is really a firm believer, then it is possible that they could be too afraid or not a good leader just because of their beliefs. Rebecca Wood, the faculty advisor for the Ghost Hunters Club, also believes in ghosts and is fascinated by the paranormal world. When she received a call asking to be an advisor, she was thrilled. For Wood, it's the open-mindedness and constant enthusiasm of members that she loves the most. It's different. Like when I tell people I'm the advisor for the Ghost Hunters Club, they say, really? That's a club? Is it something it's just something you don't hear about, Wood said. Strutter and Todd can agree that Ghost Hunters Club brings diversity to JMU while also bringing people who share a common bond together. They said it's made their college experience more interesting and inclusive in a non-traditional sense. It's important to meet like-minded people with new friends. You are not alone in what you like to do, Strutter said. I think this club brings diversity to the campus, and it makes the campus look more welcoming because it appeals to different people's interests. Get out. That was the most terrifying thing, and he was freaked, Tim.
Well, can you blame the guy? I mean, you know.
I can, but it won't go anywhere.
He's got a screw light. I mean, you know.
All right, where are we off to next?
Life after death, Dave. A man was engulfed in a peace and love after drowning. I'd rather be engulfed in an oxygen tent, personally. I mean, if you're going to drown,
but if you're going to go, peace and love is a good way to go.
It is, but, you know, I'd rather be brought back to life, personally. A man who temporarily died due to drowning saw his body submerged in the water before being engulfed in a blissful experience. The person who gave his name as simply John was out swimming with his friends in a lake when his girlfriend began struggling in the water. While trying to save his partner, the man stayed underwater for too long and ultimately inhaled some of the water when he could no longer hold his breath. After he breathed in the water, John believed he slipped into the other side. Writing for the website NDERF, they call it NDERF, I guess, Dave. I don't know. That's what the kids call it. John said he saw a light clearly of mystical or otherworldly origin and left his body. He continued, the next thing I know, it was like a pop, and I was out of my body. I was slowly rising up in the air, and I looked down, and I saw the back of my body. I remember being engulfed in a peace and love. I can only describe the feeling by comparison. Imagine the best day you ever had, and multiple, it says that by 1 billion. I think they meant multiply. And that doesn't even come close to the feeling I felt. I had my consciousness with me, and all the knowledge that I had acquired in my life. I don't know how I knew this, but I knew. I didn't feel any pain. I just knew that this is home, and we're just on a journey to enlighten our souls so we reach the next level of evolution of our souls. Thankfully, the paramedics arrived in time, and John says there was a pop and I was back in my body. Some researchers state that these visions are normal phenomena and that not necessarily a sign of the afterlife. Dr. Sam Parnia, a director of critical care and resuscitation research at NYU Langone School of Medicine in New York City, told a recent Oz Talk, people describe a sensation of a bright, warm, welcoming light that draws people towards it. They describe a sensation of experiencing their deceased relatives almost as if they have come to welcome them. They often say they didn't want to come back in many cases. It's so comfortable and it's like a magnet that draws them that they don't want to come back. A lot of people describe a sensation of separating from themselves and watching doctors and nurses working on them. Dr. Parnia says there are scientific explanations for the reaction and says seeing people is not evidence of the afterlife, but more likely just the brain scanning itself as a survival technique.
Yeah, wow. They always got to try to dismiss it. Well, I see your afterlife moment, and I raise you.
Okay.
Life after death.
All right.
Man hears God reading Bible verses to him in the afterlife.
Oh, scary.
Man who temporarily died believes he had an extraordinary near-death experience in which he could hear the voice of God reading out the Bible. The person, who only gives his name as Douglas, was undergoing routine gallbladder surgery when complications arose. Douglas, who was awake through the procedure, said he began having breathing difficulties. As he started to slip out of consciousness, Douglas said that he began asking Jesus to be with me through this. Then, a minute later, Douglas was in a totally different place, although he cannot explain where he was. However, he does remember is a feeling of falling while being surrounded by bright lights. Suddenly, Douglas said he heard a voice reading out of the scriptures while the text was zooming past him as if he were in a movie. Douglas writes for NDRF, Tim, Nerdurf, as you were mentioning. Before me, I could see moving text. It looked like the credits one sees at the end of a movie. The text was scripture, scrolling upwards and away from me, and moving at a slow, smooth, and continuous pace. So it's like the Star Wars crawl, Tim.
Oh, boy.
To the left of the scrolling scripture, distinctly separated from the scripture on the right, was an area that was empty and black. The area appeared distinct, not only appeared filled with darkness, but also completely void. It was absent of anything at all. As the scripture scrolled upwards, I could hear and feel a voice reading the words aloud. I also had the feeling, but never heard it read, that all the events of my life had been read and were known. Suddenly, Douglas was back in his body after being revived with the surgery having been completed, and he was in stable condition. Some researchers state these visions are normal phenomena, not necessarily a sign of the afterlife, but Dr. Sam Parnia, director of the critical care and resuscitation research at NYU Langone School of Medicine in New York City, told a recent Oz Talk, people describe a sensation of a bright, warm, welcoming light that draws people towards it. They describe a sensation of experiencing their deceased relatives, almost as if they have come back to them. They often say that they didn't want to come back in many cases. It is so comfortable, and it's a magnet that draws them. This sounds very familiar, Tim.
Oh, hogwash, Dave, really?
It's true. Yeah, Dr. Parnia says there are scientific explanations for the reaction. He said, thanks to modern technology and science, death does not have to be limited to philosophy and religion, though, and it can be explored through science. He added, they can hear things and record all conversations going around them all at once. That's some of the best proof he has that truthfully something happens outside of our physical form. And that's it for me. That's my last news story. Have you got another one for us?
I do, yes, actually.
Before we get to that, let's take one more call. Remember, you can be a part of our show. Call our Voices from Beyond voicemail at 651-300-4977. Share your story like this caller.
Hey, Tim and Dave. Dave and Tim, sorry. My name is Kurt, and I'm from the north suburbs of Chicago area, particularly Zion, Illinois. And I got a story from back when I was about 18 years old. It was about springtime of 2009. And me and a couple buddies, we had all just graduated high school the year before, and none of us were in college yet. So we were just it was kind of just a year of wandering around, doing dumb things and whatnot. One thing that we used to do in particular was a neighboring city. We lived really close to the Wisconsin border, and right across the border was Kenosha, Wisconsin. I think I've heard Dave mention that city before on the show. But anyways, we would drive to Kenosha late at night when there was nothing to do, and we would just look for people to yell out the window random stuff at, as stupid kids do. And just from doing that activity alone, I've seen a lot of weird things in the city of Kenosha. And I have two particular occasions where I saw something that I couldn't quite explain. So I'll do the first one. This was about the springtime of 2009, as I said. We were driving in the city of Kenosha in the downtown area. I was driving, and I had two buddies with me. And, of course, they were looking out the window for pedestrians to just shout, like, hey, weirdo, or whatever, stupid stuff. But as we were on Sheridan Road heading north. As we came to 75th Street, which eventually turns into Highway 50, I went to make a left turn, and as we were making this left turn, all three of us just happened to notice this weird-looking, what looked like a person digging through some garbage that was left out in somebody's front yard in a little residential area on the street. Now, all this happened in a matter of seconds, but it was as if time really slowed down. As I'm making the left turn, all three of us notice what we think is a naked man digging through trash. But as we get closer, it takes its upper body out of the trash can, and we notice that it's definitely not a person because it has like a narrow snout, almost like a canine, and it also has a tail. So this thing that looks like it's a naked man because it doesn't have much fur, and you just kind of notice skin instead of fur, and we notice the tail and the snout. We're thinking like, holy, you know what, like what the heck is that? And just as we start to pass it, it's looking right at us, and it turns the other direction and takes off running what looked like on its two hind legs for at least a few steps before it returned to all fours and proceeded to take off through somebody's backyard. Like I said, it was a residential area. So all three of us are like freaking out, like, did you just see that? Asking each other, did you just see that? What was that? And one of us suggested it was a chupacabra. But, so I slowed down and I got about maybe 500 feet before I said, we're turning around, we're going to check that out. And we did, and it's about maybe just a minute or two later, and the thing is long gone, and there's no sight of it at all. There's trash on the ground from where it was digging, but that's it. And to this day, I can't really explain it. At the time, I couldn't explain it at all. But the funny thing is, to fast forward all these years later, I finally hear I hear you guys on the Talk is Jericho show for the first time. Then I've been a listener of your show ever since. And on one of your episodes, you had Dark Waters on the episode, and he had a story about dogmen. And as he's kind of explaining some stories and some features of that thing, I couldn't help but think back to what we saw back in 2009. It was like, could that have been a dogman? Or, to this day, I don't know. Maybe it was a dog with mange, but, you don't really see that in an area like Kenosha, Wisconsin. It was only maybe about 4 feet tall, not very big. It was tall enough to its head and arms in a trash can. And so, yeah, that was that. I'll call back another time with my second sighting driving in Kenosha. I appreciate you guys having callers and whatnot. I'm a great listener. Well, I'm sorry, not a great listener. I'm just a faithful listener. And you guys are a great show. You guys are great hosts. And I'm done talking now. Appreciate you guys. Hey, Dave and Tim. This is Kurt again from north suburbs of Chicago. I'm calling again about going back to my random driving, shouting, stupid child stuff back in Kenosha, Wisconsin, back in like the day of 2008, 2009. And I talked about seeing a dog man before, possibly. Well, that's not the only time I saw something crazy while driving in Kenosha. I don't exactly remember what time of year this particular occasion was, but we were doing the same thing. Me, two buddies, not the same buddies actually, but two different buddies doing the same activity, driving around the city of Kenosha at night, shouting at pedestrians like, "Hey, loser, blah, blah, blah." Yeah. Well, this time we were in more of the main downtown area, right next to where there's a bunch of municipal buildings and whatnot. And I don't remember particularly what time of night it was. It had to have been close around midnight, maybe past midnight. There's not too many people out. But driving down the street, and we see a guy walking on the sidewalk kind of slowly. So we're all thinking, oh, here we go. We're going to get him. So we roll down the windows, and I kind of slow down to creep up on him so we can really scare him, you know. But just as we get close to the guy, he turns around, and I didn't even realize it at first, but this guy has like on a long cape cloak type thing, and just like a movie or something, a gust of wind just blows, and his cloak cape thing, it's all black. It goes brushing in the air, and he's also wearing a top hat, and the top hat doesn't go moving anywhere. But the guy turns around, and man, I swear, this guy looked like he was from the movie Halloween Town or Goosebumps or something. He was like all hunched over. He had a, really older looking face, kind of wrinkly and squinted. You couldn't even see any eyes, but he had a really long nose, and like I said, he had this top hat that was black, had this long cloak that was black. His undershirt was white, and he was wearing black, like, slack pants, like, nice dressy shoes. I'm telling you, this was something straight out of Halloween Town or something. And it freaked all of us out, like, oh my God, did you guys just see that? Now, I don't know who or what this guy could have been or could have been up to, but the thing about it is he turned around just at the right time, noticed us, and freaked us all out. I didn't even turn around to check back on this one. But, yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think? I wasn't on drugs, I swear. Like, pretty clean kid. But, once again, thanks for taking my calls. I really enjoy the show a whole lot. You guys are awesome. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Darkness Army. Bye.
Okay, Tim, what's our story? Where are we going next?
I got two more, actually. I got one from the West Midlands, where the police have been called to 66 paranormal incidents over the past 5 years, from a ghost on the motorway to a poltergeist in Wolverhampton. A total of 66 haunted sightings have been reported to police in the last few years. Among those are a ghost sighting on a motorway and a poltergeist, again, in Wolverhampton in the Black Country. The biggest number of paranormal sightings were made in Sandwell, with 8 taking place in the past 5 years, it says here. Across the region, the most common reported sighting was a spirit, with 29 calls made to West Midlands police. Ghosts were reported on 26 occasions since 2014, while there were 10 haunted reports. The figures were revealed through a Freedom of Information request by the Express and Star newspaper. Police officers combed through the force's logs for reports under the names of ghost, haunted, spirit, and poltergeist. However, a West Midlands police spokesman said the data should be interpreted with caution as the information has come from a range of sources. In one incident, police were called to reports of a poltergeist at a Wolverhampton address in 2017, and one person reported spotting a ghost on a motorway in 2016. Unsurprisingly, police took no further action in most paranormal reports after arriving at the scene. Two occasions, it says, police inquired further, which was 2 reports of a spirit in Dudley with separate incidents in 2014 and 2017. A further breakdown of the statistics showed 6 paranormal reports were made in Dudley since 2014. 5 were made in Walsall, while 4 were made in Wolverhampton. One report, which was made in East Birmingham in 2017, was listed as false and malicious and wasted police time. Why would you dare do that? The West Midlands is a historic region with a number of old buildings and areas allegedly haunted, including those in the Black Country. Among a few of them is Dudley Castle, Dudley the Station Hotel, Dudley the Manor House, West Bromwich.
Oh, Dudley.
That's true. Kingswinford. I don't know. I'm going to get a bunch of crap.
All right, just a bunch of places. I got you.
And the woods of Cannock Chase. So there you go.
All right. Well, that's where they were seeing the black-eyed kids, right? In Cannock Chase?
Yeah, that's where they were seeing them. And finally,
right.
Dave,
and our final story.
Yep. For $5,000, 5 big ones, Dave, you can hunt Bigfoot with Jose Canseco.
What?
You can, yeah. You and Jose Canseco out there in the woods in his RV with a sandwich. You can go out hunting Bigfoot. The
$5,000 and all I get is a sandwich?
Yeah, that's it. That's all you get. The former baseball MVP is pitching a trip to what he claims are the sites of authentic alien sightings and proven Bigfoot habitats. Former baseball superstar Jose Canseco made his name hitting home runs, but his latest project to pitch is going Bigfoot hunting. The former MVP posted 2 tweets on Tuesday night offering to take a few lucky people on an expedition tracking the mythical beast and a real alien. So you get a 2-for-1 deal here, Dave. Can I give the number out on air? Should I?
Sure, why not? If people want to spend $5,000 to Bigfoot hunt with Jose Canseco, I say we help them.
All right, okay.
You have to, if you do it, you've got to call us and tell us what it was like afterwards.
Yeah, you do. The first tweet says, go on a Bigfoot and alien excursion with Jose Canseco. Contact Morgan Management. Get your pen and paper out here, kids. 702-374-3735. I'll do it one more time. Well, it says it in the second tweet here, too. So it says, come spend the day with me and my alien buddies. That's right. They're buddies. I'll show you Bigfoot and a real alien. Call Morgan at 702-374-3735. That almost sounds like a threat, doesn't it? I'll show you Bigfoot and a real alien. That sounds like it almost should be scratched on a wall in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very weird. All right, well, that's it for this week, folks.
You don't want to hear what Huffington Post called the listed phone number, and they received a text message.
Oh, really? Yeah, I need to hear that. But first, let me remind you that Psychic Sorts wants us to remind you that your life path doesn't have to be a mystery. It's okay to ask for a little guidance sometimes, and you'll be so glad you did. Try your first reading today at a super discounted rate of only 83 cents a minute. Don't forget to mention promo code DARKNESS when you call or sign up at psychicsource.com. Again, code word DARKNESS. Still not sure? Save their number just in case. 1-800-355-9214. 1-800-355-9214. 83 cents a minute, up to 30 minutes for that first reading, and use promo code DARKNESS to get those savings. All right, Tim. So the Huffington Post decided to put the Jose Canseco number to the challenge. What did they find?
They called the listed phone number and received this text message. It said, spend the weekend with Jose for $5,000 cash. You got to have cash. Only 5 lucky individuals will get a golden ticket. Oompa Loompas ain't got nothing on Bigfoot. Travel in his custom RV to authentic alien sightings and proven Bigfoot habitats. Camp out in the wild, tell stories, and maybe meet a real Bigfoot. You never know what's going to happen with Mr. Canseco. Food is included. Only serious inquiries, please. I will help you book your flights to Vegas and set itineraries. Thank you, Morgan. The response said the first excursion was almost full. So it's almost all full, the 5 spots. This isn't completely out of left field for the 54-year-old outfielder. A few weeks ago, Canseco posted a series of tweets, which we covered on a few weeks ago, claiming aliens had given him the secrets to time travel. It's true.
Yeah.
Also,
so you're getting, now I'll tell you what. For $185, a box of Twinkies and a McRib, Tim and I will take you Bigfoot hunting as well, right here in Minnesota.
That's true. We got a lot of good spots. Yeah,
and we're much more affordable. We'll even play a game of catch with you afterwards.
Right, we will. We would do that. Yeah, we would do that. Yeah.
You can call us at Tim's phone number, which is 612.
Dave. We'll make it easier.
How do people sign up, Tim? It's easy if they just call. I mean, Jose's given a number. I would guess Tim Dennis should at 612.
Dave, people don't ever remember phone numbers.
Oh.
It's a proven fact.
Yeah, but yours is so easy. I mean, it's 612.
No, but Dave. Nobody's going to remember the phone number that I gave out for Jose Canseco. They're not ever going to remember my phone number.
They can just rewind this free audio and get it any time. So here, it's 612.
Dave. It's a proven fact. It's a proven fact. You might as well just give out the email. I mean, just give out tim@darknessradio.com and we'll book them that way. Or Dave at darknessradio.com.
People are afraid of technology. They don't like to have emails in exchange, but they do want to give a call to 612.
But Dave, you just pointed it out. Yeah? People are afraid of technology. So and they get shy. They don't necessarily want to talk to me. So why don't they just send an email? Just send a nice little email saying, hey, I'm interested, and we'll contact them. See? We'll break the ice out.
There's always that. Yeah. All right. Well, that's it, I guess. There's not much more to report on this week, is there?
I don't think so. No, I mean, I could finish up by telling you about the fact that Jose Canseco falsely claimed that his middle finger had come off during a poker game. But other than that, I mean,
what?
That was the other part of the story. I mean, just the little things that had happened with Jose in the past that may make you want to think twice before you put $5,000 down on Bigfoot hunting with them, and instead spend your money with us going Bigfoot hunting.
Yeah, much better. And again, for a very little fee and a box of Twinkies and McRibs, we're yours. And we'll give you a game of catch afterwards. And remember, just call us at 612.
Dave, we agreed on the email.
Oh, that's right. You didn't want to do the phone number on this one. Yeah, well, I'm sure we'll do it in another episode. I'll give you Tim's number when we're going to do something else, maybe exciting like alien anal probing.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah. All right, very cool. Let's call it a wrap. That's it for today. We'll be back tomorrow with identified flying objects and a more sciencey, wyancy look, Tim, at UFOs and their inhabitants. Could it be us from the future? Tune in tomorrow. Dr. Masters lets us know right here on Beyond the Darkness.